Hey, what's up, guys? We're back. We got everything organized and we're all situated this time. Tech looks like it's cooperating and playing nice. So we're going to go ahead and get rolling. As I said, this episode of Trent Talks, and I've got Josh Forti with me. Super excited to have Josh on. Josh, thanks for being here, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
But so I met Josh, what I was saying before technology decided to hose us. I met Josh officially 2018 last year at Funnel Hacking Live. We had some fun conversations.
Yeah.
I think that's when we were talking. No product promo here. This is just talking. We were talking the woodpecker stuff and all that stuff. Remember that?
Yeah.
About some of the coal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had some fun conversations then, and that's kind of how our relationship started. It's been wonderful. No,
yeah. Yes, anyway. A year and a half, 18 months ago, man. It was like short. That was like right before everything went down on my end. That's crazy. I forgot that's when that was.
You've had a little bit of chaos on your end, especially as of late and everything, man. And you've been through a lot. But to tell us all real quick, because I know we'll get to some of the stuff you've had recently and kind of how your mindset has helped you, especially with, and not to be, if you don't want to talk about it, it's okay, but even the stuff with your brother and how mentally you've had a lot of hurdles going there. But so how did you get involved in, we'll do the fast version in online marketing, social media management, etc.?
Super fast version. Born in Wisconsin, grew up suburbs of LA for the first 10 years of my life. At age 11, moved out to Indiana. Age 12, moved to a farm in Indiana. Lived there for 10 years, or 10 years or whatever, roughly. My parents still live there today. So learned how to work hard, all that jazz. Tried to start a business, failed.
Sorry, I'm laughing because Daxie just commented. He goes, "Who is this, Trent?"
Who this
is, Daxie.
Oh man, it's so good old Daxie. Good to see him on here. So went from there, tried to start a business, failed, went to college. Started college, hated every second of it, and went and basically got up. I got up and walked out in the middle of a class after getting in a fight with my professor and was like, I'm going to go figure this out. And so long story short, I got a job in sales, was selling some insurance, and went home one day and went to Google and said, how do I make money online? And ultimately that was my first experience. And I think that's when the ads started. You start typing in that type of stuff. Saw an ad for an Instagram course.
What year was that? Do you remember?
This would have been 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, 2016 early. So I would have just turned 22. I would have typed this in. I would have typed this in actually before that, because I quit December of 2016. And no, I quit. When would this have been? This would have been 2017. No, that's not possible. Let's see. It's 2019 now. So back up 2018.
It would have been 2016 probably. Because 18 was when I started. When I was talking to you and you had been running your social media agency.
Yeah, I sold the Josue. I sold the Josue not last year, which would have been 2018. It was the year before that, which would have been 2017. So this would have been 2016. Yeah, 2016. So it was like early, and it probably even would have been slightly before that I originally typed it in. But when I ended up buying the Instagram course, it was March. I think it was like March 3rd or something like that of 2016. Yeah. And went and started going into that. I made a just commitment. I was like, I'm going to buy this course. I saved up. I didn't have the money for it at first. Like I actually saved for it for a little bit. It was $1,000. And so I remember I was like, I'm going to buy this, but I'm going to do every lesson right now. This is before the internet marketing space. Like I knew that people like bought courses and didn't do them. Right. Like for me, that wasn't an option. I'm like, I'm spending all my money on this thing. So I did that.
Like, it just did
work. It has to work. Like it had to work. And because like I was working at a job, right? Like, and so for me, and this is the thing that I think, I've evolved a lot over mindset, but I will say one of the mindset pieces that I think I had right, which I think I lost a little bit and then, got it back, was like, I was ruthless when it came to work. Like I would stop at nothing. And so like I would go and I had to be at work. I think it was 8 a.m. every morning or 9 a.m. depending upon the morning. It was like 8 a.m. And it was like a 30-minute drive. So I had to leave there at 7:30. Now, I hate mornings. Like, I hate mornings more than anyone I've ever met. Like, I absolutely hate them. But, like, at this time, I would set my alarm and I would get up at, like, 5:30. And and would work for 2 or 3 hours in the morning. I would work on my lunch break. I would work from the moment I got off work to the moment I went to bed. Like, people are like,
you are the traditional story then that people talk about when they say, like Gary talks about a lot when he says, oh, work your 9 to 5 and then work your side hustle, work it in the mornings, on lunch break, and at night.
But like legitimately, like no, like, oh, I kind of, like like every day, 7 months straight, 7 days a week. Like, I don't think people understand, like, you can get anywhere you want, but like, I didn't go to a party. I didn't go to a hangout. I didn't go see my family. I mean, I literally went probably 4 places, work, the gas station to fill up with gas,
and a
Walmart, Walmart and church. Like, those are the only 4 places that I went for 7 months. Like, wow. I had no friends. And like, I can't stress that enough. Like, I was that person, you know what I mean? And like, I worked and I hustled, but 7 months later, right, I had 150,000 followers on Instagram all of a sudden. And I had was friends with a bunch of other people that had big followers. And that's how I partnered up with Josue. So long story short, we do that. I mean, I do that. I partner up with Josue. We start this Instagram agency, which, we had no idea what the heck we were doing. We were broke, right? Like, and like, looking back, like, it sucked, obviously, but at the same time, like, I don't know if you ever read the book The Power of Broke by Damon John, or like stuff like that. Like,
I haven't read it, but
the concept's there, right? Like, you get it. Like, you make it happen, and
when you have to make something happen, you have to make a decision in your mind. Like, okay, I have to make this happen. There is no alternative option. So yes, it may suck. Yes, it's awful not having any free time or feeling like I have no life. But if I'm going to make it happen, the payout will be worth it down the road.
Will be huge. And I look forward, like, let's skip ahead to 18 months ago, or like 15 months ago. Like, I had money in the bank, right? And like, I went from making great money to making crap money, right? Like, I did, but I still had money, right? You know what I mean? Right. So like, when you're in that position, and this is why I say I think I lost some of that, tenacity, or that work ethic there when it all came crashing down, was because I had been working 100 hours a week for 3 years straight, literally. Like,
you were feeling some of the burnout.
Right. I didn't do anything, but it's weird because like, the reason right now where I like to go hard in spurts, but I would never go completely hard again, because I don't think, maybe, I don't know, but like, is that like, when you stop that, it feels good. It doesn't at first, right? Like, when I first stopped working, like really stopped, it drove me nuts. But all of a sudden,
was it like a feeling of arrival type thing? Like, you're like, okay, all that work got me to X plateau or X position. Now I can kind of just relax.
Well, no, mine was that mental breakdown 18 months ago. I mean, like, I really did. And so for me, it was a guilt feeling. Like, me not working, I felt guilty. Like, I had to work all the time, or else I was feeling guilty. But my mom and dad also were. I mean, my dad supported, 8 kids, now 7, but like, kids, homeschooled. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, but also ran a whole farm and homeschooled the kids, right? Like, my mom's job was a full-time, the second she woke up to the second she went to bed, and so was my dad. So like, for me, like, that's just what you did, right? Like, you just worked all the time. And so like, all of a sudden I got done, and I've got money in the bank, and and I blew through a lot of that money. But at the same time, it was like, I can sit here and watch Netflix all day, eat whatever I want, go do whatever I want. And I've built an audience as aren't like, it's on demand, right? Like, if you're ever really broke, if I was ever really broke, I could go do a promo without any paid advertising and make 20 grand like that. Right. And so it's like, all right, so you reach this point where you're like, I don't know how I have to work anymore, right? Or like I could take breaks, and I didn't like that. But back then, you worked because you had to, and you worked because like this just tenacity that it's like, I'm going to get this done. I will not quit, and like, we could talk about the first webinar I ever did, and the huge, massive flop that was. I mean, that was supposed to be the thing that was going to set us free, right? It was going to make us 6 figures. It was going to, do all this. We had 1,000 people on the webinar, 1,000 people. We had 2,700 people register for it. And we didn't pay for any of it. It was all organic, right? It's like,
all through social media,
out all through Instagram or whatnot, made 1 sale. Like, 1. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just failure after failure after failure. And like people don't see that, right? And it's like in marketing, you put out the best that you've got, right? And like you should. I'm not saying that,
totally.
and there's a difference between like a marketing, like for example, we have the Mindship playbook right now, right? And we're pushing on it hard. And we are.
And you've had some good success with it already. Knock, knock, wink, wink.
Yeah. I mean, like we have, I think there's 700 people that have signed up already in the first awesome. day and a half, right? You know what I mean? So like, I'm sure we'll probably get like 2,000 people this week or close to, right?
Oh, fantastic.
With, we're spending some money on ads and stuff, but minimal ad spend overall, but like there's a difference between marketing and building an audience, right? Like building an audience. And this is what people don't get. Like when you build an audience, like it's ups and downs, highs, lows, like you share it all. When you do a launch, you share the good side of things, right? Well, Guess what? When you do a launch, those could also be huge flops. And it's funny because I've had some great launches. I mean, I really have. We did one launch last in July, it was end of July, I think. We did $42,000 in 9 days off of no ad spend. Okay. Like nice. Just out of thin air, like just $42,000, right? We've had close to
was that your course or was that when you launched the software?
The software was the software combined 2 launches, I think did close to 40,000 with no ad spend. Nice. But that was 2 separate kind of launches, the 97 and then the 197. No, this one was for a coaching program. It was the social media secrets, I think it was. Yep. Yeah, so it was like a $97 webinar with a high ticket pitch on the back end. But nice. I taught for 3.5 hours, right? So like people are hop on and they're expecting a 90-minute webinar, and I teach for 3.5 hours, non-webinar style at all. Like I went deep, and we did $42,000 off that. So like nice. You have I've had great launches, but on the flip side, I've equally had flop launches, right? Like I have failed bigger.
Well, it's a common
than
trend,
most
man.
People.
Like it happens. Yeah. I mean, Steve Larson talks about it all the time. Like Steve talks about how I think he just sent out an email. It's funny this last week about how he bombed on like 16 straight funnel launches.
16 straight. Yeah. And Steve and I
17 is finally the one that hit. I mean, it's funny hearing him talk about it because if you follow Steve, like I've followed Steve for I think 2.5 years now, roughly from when he started with Russell. And it was like, everybody's like, Steve's the best funnel builder on the planet. Steve could never have a flop. He would never make mistakes, and his funnels would always do. Oh no, the dude bombed on 16 straight funnels.
Yeah, no,
that's just
for sure. And what's interesting, we actually have an interview coming out with him on Friday on the podcast. And Steve's a very good friend of mine. I mean, probably one of my closer friends in the business world. And like even on the interview, if you listen to it, like I grilled him. I was like, listen, bro, like you've got this whole sob story that you couldn't feed your wife, right? I was like, is it real? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. I was like, I want to know, you know what I mean?
What's funny is when I had him on, before we went on camera, I actually did the exact same thing and I grilled him as well. I'm like, dude, was this legit? Like, I mean, he's like, no, seriously, man. He's like, I was actually really broke where I was like splitting cans of food and my wife wasn't eating and I didn't know. And like, he was like, it was legit.
Right. And he's a very sincere human and I love Steve. And like, I trust Steve, right? So I didn't have to ask him that question for me to believe him, right? Like I believe the guy, but like, I know people have asked that question, right?
You just want to know the details.
You do. And he's like, dude, it was way worse than that. He's like, that's just what I was comfortable sharing. Right. And that's the story. That's the watered down version of what was really going on, And so I'm like, guys, like, and when it comes to mindset, like, there's very few things now that could rock my mindset, like really rock me at a core level. And like, I thought about this scenario playing out. Let's pretend that I did this launch. I have some cash tied up into this launch for sure. Like, I mean, like I have employees now and, people working for me and we've got, graphics being made, Facebook ads being run. I don't know, I'm probably 5,000-7,000 in right on this launch so far. I mean, plus we got all the ads running. So who knows what it'll end up being, but like, even if all of it flopped, like, let's say I get done at the end of this week and it's like a $5,000 flop and we got, nobody in or whatever.
$5,000, $7,000,
whatever it is, just gone. And like, I get the exposure from it. We make some opt-ins and it flops. Like 6 months ago, a year ago, 18 months ago, 2 years ago. I mean, that would have wrecked me. It really would have, right? Like that would have just shaken me and made me so disappointed. We did a launch or a push at the end of last year that just flopped. And I was like, so disappointed from it. But like now I like can honestly say like I've gone through some stuff in the past 6 months. I mean, I lost my brother, and I've had some stuff going on with my family. There's been legal stuff that's going on, not on the business side of things, but like on some other side of things where it's like, what? Like, it'll just blow your mind. You know what I mean? And like a lot of the stuff I can't even share, right? Like where it's like, if people knew what I was going through with some mental stuff, you would be just blown away. Right. And it's so like, I get to the end of it and I'm just like, but I'm still here. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, whatever. And so you don't get complacent, but you go, okay, how can I learn? And so if you have $7,000 out the door, nothing happens, which obviously that's not the case. I mean, I do want to clarify.
Let's bring clarification. You're having a great response.
I'm having a great.
I saw your post after I think it was like the first 2 hours. You're like, oh my gosh, we've had 300 people opt in and get the book in like 2 hours. So we know it's not a flop.
Right. It was 200 in the first 3 hours, and now it's over I think 650. I mean, as of when I woke up this morning. So yeah, I mean, it's been amazing. It's been incredible, and we got interviews coming up, and Steve's going to promote it later this week in his group, and for his interview, it's going to be awesome. But what I'm saying is that people don't understand. Okay, so like we tend to. I think this is one of the biggest things that I learned more about mindset is like we tend to go and judge, especially in business, whether or not something was successful or not based on how much cash was generated, right? Or we have a singular metric like opt-ins or cash generated or impressions made or whatever. But like
it's a short-term metric that has to have an impact right now.
Right. But on the flip side of that, people forget this huge metric of like data and experience, right? So like
the best teacher.
So like one of the things for example, for the Mindshift playbook, for example, and I'm going to be honest with you in real time, right? So like we have some upsells like on the back end, and so the book is free, but it's interesting because we considered doing selling the book for $1. In fact, I don't know if Daxy's still on here, but I was chatting with him about this. Should we give the book away for free? Or should we sell the book for $1 so that we have their credit card information so that we can just one-click upsell them, right? Rather than trying to get them to put in their credit card for a further upsell, right? And it's been interesting to watch the data because we've done paid ones in the past or whatnot. It's been interesting to watch the data to go like, oh, so here's the percentage that we have converting when we don't ask for the credit card up front, we ask for it on the second step. Here's the going back to 6 months ago or 8 months ago when we asked for the money up front and then did then asked for the one-click upsell, like did different conversion rates, right? And so you just start to learn, you start to go, okay, well, if I charge this much here, typically speaking, I see the feedback from this.
Yep.
And so you go and you do that 3, 4, 7 times, you could hear it from Russell, right? But I think the thing is let's imagine you.
Well, it's a difference of mastery. People talk about mastery. Like there's knowledge. There's the I understand it mastery. Like Tony and Dean talked about this in their launch with the KBB program, right? There's the knowledge mastery. There's the implementation, like emotional mastery, and then there's the mastery where it all get it. You've got all the experience, and it all just makes sense.
Right.
It's turns into you think of an athlete, it turns into muscle memory.
Right. Exactly. And so you've got. Imagine you're building a funnel, right? And you listen to Russell and, you're following his exact formula, or maybe you have Russell as a coach, or, you've hired someone as a coach to walk you through it or whatever. And it works. It's great, right? You do a great launch, you make $100,000, right? Great. You've had a great successful launch and, things are going well. However, then you go to do launch 2 and you have no idea what you did right. You just know that you followed what Russell said, right? Which is great, but when you try to go duplicate something yourself, or when you try to make yourself or try in your own unique things, you have no idea what doesn't work, right? You might know what works, but you are stuck then to only be able to do that. And so many people that I've seen, they get crippling fear to ever do anything that doesn't work. Right. Or that they've never done.
It's
before.
Something that people don't realize the concept. You don't I said this actually in an interview I did on another podcast. A guy was talking about failure and this and that. And I told him, I said, I don't actually believe in failure. There is no real such thing, in my opinion, as failure. The only time you have failure is if you give up.
Yeah.
Because it's either you give up or you learn.
Right.
I mean, I had my own course that I put a ton of time into, and I'm like, oh, awesome, I'll have one coming soon. But I put a ton of time into it. I'm like, this is amazing. I was so stoked about all the content. Sold like 4 copies.
Right.
And I'm like, that means I'm terrible. No, I just learned.
And let's get into the Mindship playbook there a little bit on that. Okay. Yeah. Like on that topic of I'm terrible if something fails. So there's this whole thing and this concept that I've been really fascinated by recently, and that it's part 4 of the Mindship playbook, which is identity. Okay. So one of the things that you'll learn, and there's parts leading up to this in the playbook, so don't worry, I'm not going to drop this identity bomb on you like, right away, because it's deep, man. I tell you, identity is one of the most deep things that you can, like. There's a quote. I'm going to substitute crap for a word that's actually in the quote, but it's like, being honest with yourself, right? Like, is the hardest thing in the world to do, because you have to realize that you got to get your crap together. You know what I mean? Like you got to, like,
self-awareness is brutal, man.
It's so hard. And like, not even just like honest self-awareness, like brutally honest self-awareness. That is some depressing stuff at times, right? But like, I remember this was shortly after. So like a little bit of context on the playbook. 18 months ago, was making great money, but I had a mental breakdown. So let's back up like 21 months ago, roughly. Like, it's funny because I reached this point. It was probably mid-November of 2017. I remember like sitting there reaching this point where I was like, I'm too far in. Like, and I remember thinking,
now, what do you mean by that? I'm too far in. What do you mean?
So I was working 17, 18 hours a day, 6 days a week. Plus,
I remember that time. I remember when you were doing that.
Sunday afternoons. It was nuts. Okay. Like, it was brutal. Now, I was good, right? Like, I was good at what I did. Like, I got people results. Like, there's no question about that. I mean, I had Dave Woodward. In my career, I've had Dave Woodward as a client, Todd Dickerson as a client, Julie Stoney as a client, Steve Larson as a client. Like, I mean, like, I got people results, and we still do, right? But I remember sitting there going, I am too far in, meaning that like I'm working so hard, I don't have time to do any more, but I also don't have time to bring someone in and teach someone to do what I'm doing. So I'm in this like loop. You're in that
catch-22 spot, right? Of like,
I'm going, what do I do? Something's going to break, right? I can't keep up, but I'm like, as long as I keep, living off monsters and, like it was terrible. Like, my diet, I'm not kidding you. I remember there was a joke on, I don't know, Snapchat.
Well, I remember for a period of time, your diet consisted of monsters, and I believe it was McDonald's.
McDonald's and Panda Express, both of them. I mean,
Panda Express was the other one.
They're right. They're not right down the street, but like, they're like, I don't know, 7 minutes away, but they're right next to each other. But I remember there was a joke. I think it was on Instagram. I ate Panda Express 22 meals in a row. 22 meals twice a day, lunch and dinner, for 22 meals in a row. Okay. So like, I'm telling you, like, we're talking, my diet's out of control. I'm working 18 hours a day.
Right.
I'm not sleeping. I'm not in a relationship. Right. And I know no one. Right. So like, I'm here in Omaha, Nebraska by myself.
Is that when you had the breakdown?
That was the point where I go, I know it's coming. Right. Like, I know that something's got to change.
Something's going to give, because
something's going to. And so Funnel Hacking Live comes. And of course, like, and I go to Funnel Hacking Live. I don't care if my business, fell apart. Like, I was going to Funnel Hacking Live. I love Funnel Hacking Live. And so I go there, and I remember sitting there, and I met some awesome people. And it's funny because I actually spoke at the event. It was the pre-Funnel Hacking Live Mastermind at the time, with Steve and James. So like, they brought me in, and it was the 3 of us. We went,
we did our thing. This is the one 18 months ago. This is when I actually met you. That's the one I met you at. Yeah.
And so like, I'm there, right? And I didn't like, people are like, oh, but James even said it on stage.
You hit it well.
And I can, man.
None of us could see that. At least I didn't know you super well then, but you couldn't see from the outside that you were feeling the pressure or knowing that it was coming
right.
to
And James Smiley said it. I mean, like, on there, I didn't sleep the night before because I was working, right? Like, the whole night beforehand, I was up all night, right? So like, I get to this event and I haven't slept, not 1 hour, not 1 minute. Like, I am up the whole night beforehand. But I've, like the year leading up to this, I've made, over $250,000, right?
Right.
So I'm like, I'm 24, dude. I'm living large, right? Like you
have that kind of almost like I'm unbreakable mindset at that age. You're like, I can do this. I can handle this.
Like I can, like it's this mindset that says whatever comes my way, I'll either figure it out or buy my way out.
Right.
Right. And when you come from making $10 an hour, you think $250,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's not. But you don't know
story
that.
for a different day.
Right. So like I get there, I do the presentation. It's awesome. I go to Funnel Hacking Live. And it's funny because like during that time, so Steve was one of the only clients that I didn't cancel during the time. So like that was actually when I picked up Steve shortly after that. And it was funny because Steve didn't know this at the time, but like he was one of the first. So like during my 18-month trek, like after I hit rock bottom, there were several weeks that went by. Steve was one of the only people I talked to and got him on as a client and that like I helped him with during that time. And it was one of the things that kind of pulled me out of that because I was doing Steve for a while. And like I eventually canceled him like end of last year because I switched away from that model. But like his Facebook group, I did it. His Instagram account, I did it. Right. So like during that time, like I become friends with Steve. At that Funnel Hacking Live is when I met Marie, his sister, right? Who she and I are pretty good friends now. Like I've met several people, Cody Neer and I, Tyler Jordanson and I. Like I met a lot of people at that Funnel Hacking Live. And so I get home from that Funnel Hacking Live and I've met all these people and they're all successful. They're all crushing it. All these, I see, the Natalie Hodson's up on stage, the seat to the chair. Russell's a phenomenal marketer. Right. But it also makes you feel like a piece of crap if you're not in a good position in your life.
You're looking at everything that he's doing. You're like, oh, boy, I am so far behind the ball, finding 8 ball right now.
Right. And so for me, it was that point where I reached it. I was like, you know what? And I knew at that point, I was like, I am not going to reach that ever if I continue down this path. Like if I continue doing what I'm doing right now, it is unsustainable to get to that level. It cannot happen.
And so I'm like, there's nothing you can add. Yeah.
I had 3 businesses. I had 3 different things that I was trying to go on and go do. Right. Like
that's tough.
It was all over the place. I was a mess. And so I was trying to do, so many different things. I could not stay focused. Shiny object.
So how long did it take you to transition out of that?
Like 2 days. I'm telling you, bro, it like when it hit. Like I went like overnight from making a ton of money to making almost no money. Like it was real quick. And I remember like, cause I lived in the apartment that I live in now when this all happened and when this went down. And so I remember waking up one morning and like the last week leading up to that was really bad. Like it was like, I get done with Funnel Hacking Live. I get home. Now I'm already behind on an 18-hour a day schedule, right? Because
you're used to that same schedule and you missed the time for Funnel Hacking Live.
Well, right. Exactly. For all that jazz. So like, and I'm working like during Funnel Hacking Live, I didn't sleep a whole lot. I'm, working constantly the whole time I'm there, right? Like live streaming every second of everything. Like, that's just who I was. Right.
Right.
And then it broke. And so like leading up to that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a problem. And so I had to go back and like and it was I will say the one saving grace though, was that a lot of clients, some of them were kind of annoyed, I think, because like things were a little bit behind, but none of them were ticked off at me because I got them results. Right. So like maybe there was a little frustration, but like I left everyone pretty much on good terms. And I just went back to them. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I have to cancel you. I'm sorry. And I refunded the one.
How far honesty goes.
Right. It really is. And it's amazing how far it goes with yourself and people off. And it won't buy you out of a hard situation, but it will set you up for the best possible future case scenario. And like, I have a lot of those people that had to cancel still have a lot of respect for me just because like, even though they're pissed off at the time, like whatever, like they were like, okay, well, she was honest.
Well,
and
I think we
wasn't trying to screw them.
How forgiving people can be.
Right. Well, and how understanding.
When you're not trying to screw people and you're honest with them, people are generally very forgiving and very understanding. They may not like it. They may not be upset. But people, I think as a whole, we think that society is all this horrible monster, and they're not. people are inherently, in my opinion, people are generally good. They're inherently good people. They don't want to treat people
would say that as well. Yeah. Akbar would agree with that. People are inherently good. I think the other thing is that we have to remember is that like not everybody has gone through what you've gone through, but at some point they'll probably go through something similar. Like we're all humans. And like, yes, there's those of people like me and maybe you, like some of us are way out there. Like I'm going to have some crazy life experiences that probably some people won't, but they're all going to go through their own version of like, there's only so many different emotions that you can experience. Right. So like, we're all going to go through a time of stress in our lives. We're all going to go through a time of needing forgiveness in our lives. And
which is another reason why it's important not to judge people.
Right. Because the second that you go and do it, when you go through it, they're not going to do the same for you. Right. So, you know, for me at that point, I was honest with them. I canceled it. But then, you know, there was contracts that were there that with cancellation refunds, there was bank contracts, there was money contracts. Like I had signed things to get the best deals, right? Like I'm a business dude. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm making money, yada, yada. So, I mean, I refund and pay tens of thousands of dollars. But then I woke up the next morning and was like,
now what?
What's next? Right. And I laid on the floor with the, blanket. And I, saw this in the book. I told it when people go to the landing page of the Mindshift playbook, like I laid on the floor, I wrapped myself in a blanket and I don't remember where. People keep asking me this question and I actually don't remember where I got them. I must've bought them the night before or that morning or whatever, but I had cigarettes and I've never have ever smoked ever. That's a huge no-no, but I was so stressed. And I just remember, I remember people telling me about how much cigarettes help that. And I was
you were really looking and digging for anything to help relieve the stress at that point.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, let me ask you this. I know your background, right? Just because I follow you and stuff like that. I know you're Christian. I mean, so am I.
Yeah.
Like, I think people forget that it's not always easy in a moment where you're just so, for lack of a better way to say it, beat up to just be like, oh, God's got me. It's not always that easy.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it takes a spot of trying to go. What were you gonna say?
No. And I 100% agree with that. So my relationship with God is super interesting, right? And it's super good now. But I've put God on the back shelf, but I've never just abandoned him, right? If that makes sense. And he's certainly never abandoned me.
I've done the same thing.
Right. Even during that moment, I've had some pretty low times and I've messed up and I've done some pretty non-Christian things, not to other people, but for myself. I try my very best never to scam or hurt anybody else, but I've done some stupid stuff, but even during that moment, I had conversations with God and I was like, you suck. Right. You know what I mean?
Some people know my story. I have 2 special needs daughters. They're both autistic, right? And I fully believe the Lord's going to heal them at some point in their lives, right? But I've gone through those moments where I've looked at God and be like, you know what? You suck. You're not there, dude. You got to and I realize those are issues those are my issues, not his issues. But it's I think it's real talk that needs to be had. And it goes to what you're saying with where we're talking about your mindset playbook. It's the mental game is serious. People overlook it and they think that it's just you get over it, you move on. It's not always like that.
Well, and it's okay. Being mentally tough doesn't ever mean not mentally struggling, right? So 100%. I mean, holy cow. So when I was younger, I worked at a factory, granary, and I had an incredibly foul mouth.
You were a sailor?
I was a sailor. Every other word was the F-bomb when I was in a bad mood. I mean, I'm telling you what, not at home because I had to protect it. So I am very well versed in how to do those things or say those things well. But I remember when Kyle died, right? It was a Sunday night. And
for those who don't know, Kyle is his brother.
My older brother.
Josh, your older brother. It was what, about 3 months ago? 4 months
March
ago?
9th. So whatever that was. Yeah. So coming up on 4 months. Yeah. I was going to dinner with Leah. It was a Sunday night. Leah's my girlfriend. And my mom calls me quite often on Sunday nights, right? About that time. So phone rings. I'm literally walking out the door, shoes on, coat on, walking out, and the phone rings. And so I was like, oh, my mom's calling. Let me just tell her we're going out to dinner. I'll call her right back. And so it's blood, like I pick up the phone and it's just blood curdling screams, right? You know what I mean? Like something I've never ever heard before.
And you just freeze.
Well, I'm like, what? I'm like, what is going on? Like, I'm trying to calm her down, right?
Right.
And so like I'm standing in the, like my door is kind of by the kitchen, so it's like right around the corner. Like there's the kitchen where you walk out, and I'm standing in the kitchen and like yelling at her. I'm like Mom, like calm down. And I remember her like hearing her just scream like Kyle's dead. Like he's dead. He's gone. Lord. Like your brother's dead. And so like, I don't remember the rest of that conversation. I think it was, Mom saying that I'll call you back or something like that. But I remember just like dropping to the floor in the kitchen. And like the first thing that you're in shock, you're in disbelief at that point, right? Like you're like, right. What's going on? And I remember, the first thing out of my mouth was, why, like, why God? Like, why? And then the next thing out of my mouth was F you, God, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you suck, like right away. Like, I'm like, you can't, how? My brother has a baby on the way. My brother has a 4-year-old son, right? You know what I mean? Like,
how dare you? Why?
Like, how dare you? How dare you? Right. And so like, your mind is affected by emotions, right? Your mind is affected by other things. Being mentally strong doesn't mean that those things are never going to affect you. However, and like, that's a drastic situation. Anybody's expected, to go a couple days or a week and be upset. That's cool. But like, some people never get out of that, right? Like some people, like they don't recover and they continue to be mad. They continue to be upset. And how you react to situations when it comes to your mind, coming back, I don't remember how we got off the topic of identity with, Steve Larson. I'm going to loop back to that. But like, all this, like I'm upset. I'm mad, right? Like, I'm there, but yet at the same time, I chose then, and even back when everything collapses, right? With the, business and everything like that, I choose to go and bring my topic to God. So
yeah,
even though I'm yelling and screaming and upset at him, I am still coming to him, right? I'm still talking to him, which I think
we know that
Christians,
the Bible talks about that. Bring him to me, and
right.
And it doesn't always have to be like bring them to me happily. And
right. It's not that. It's just
it can be like I'm bringing them to you, and I'm pissed off right now, and
right.
we're gonna have this out, and I'm gonna vent. And because he's a good father, he listens.
Yes, right. So circling back to the business side of things, I'm laying there, I'm wrapped myself in a blanket. I smoke a cigarette, which I had never done before in my whole life, right? And I'm like, what's next? Like, I'm pretty beat up, pretty low. Now, the funny thing is that I'm supposed to, I'm trying to remember where this all took place, because it wasn't long after that. Oh man, maybe I got the storyline wrong on this in the book. Maybe it was March. For some reason, I thought it was February, but now I thought maybe it was because Funnel Hacking Live was end of February in 2018, not beginning of February. I think
it was around the 25th.
Yeah, it was late. So maybe this would have been March, because
late February, early March.
Right after February, or right after Funnel Hacking Live, I flew up to Chicago. I spoke at an event up there in Chicago, went well, and I was supposed to move there. That was my next step. So I was going to move to a 35th floor apartment right below penthouses, overlooking the Chicago Bears stadium, and then out into the water, and then view of the city in Chicago. That's where I was supposed to move to next. And so I ended up not going there, not because I couldn't afford it, but because I felt as though that was a move to like try to find fulfillment, purpose, justify the fact that I'm cool, something like that, right? And so I didn't end up going there. And so this was right around the time when it all like came crashing down. And so I get crashing down, and it's funny to me because I, pretty low, sitting there wondering what's next, what's going to happen, what's going on. And like 2 months later, I meet my girlfriend here in Omaha, and like, we're still, that would have been just over a year ago now. And we're still together. Right. And so like, I meet her like shortly after this whole experience. And I always, say, and I tell her, I'm like, I'm so glad that you met me when you did, but I'm also so glad that you did not meet me any earlier. right? Like, I'm okay with her meeting me. I was at a low point in my life, and she watched me go through a lot, and like, she stuck with me through everything. But like, I'm a different person than I was pre 18 months ago. And if she would have, I don't think she would have dated me if I was the person that I was before she would have met, like, met that.
Yeah.
And like, the transformational process that you go through all comes back to your identity. And so going back to and looping back to the identity part, which we were talking about, part 4 of the playbook. So everything that we do, every action that you take, every belief that you have, every thought that you do, like everything all comes back to your identity. And your identity is simply the belief that you have about yourself.
Right.
And so, I remember what it was, identity, about rocking everything. So up until this point, my whole identity was in my career. Everything was based upon how successful I was, how much money I had made, right? Everything. So like, I didn't care. Cause like, here's the thing, right? I was told as a kid, I should say as like a teenager, like my best friend in the whole world at the time, his name is Carter. And Carter's not going to be listening to this, but Carter, if this clip is ever cut, I love the crap out of you. Okay. Not hating on you, but like at the time, his family's a doctor family, right? All of his siblings, dad comes from a doctor family. He's studying to be a doctor. We're roughly the same age. We're teaching Sunday school together. And his comment about me to all the kids right to my face was, hey kids, you can either go, because we taught 5th and 6th grade boys Sunday school, was, hey kids, you can either go and go to college and become a successful doctor like me, or you can drop out of college and become like Josh. Okay. Because this is before I'm successful. Right.
Ouch.
And this is to my face, to my best friend. Right. Like, holy cow. Like, you don't say that. So then, when I dropped out of college, I also knew that his dad, who once again, I respect the guy, he's an awesome guy, was like, so we're kind of worried about you, like what you're going to do, yada, 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 all that, which I get. People don't get me. People don't get, I'm not normal. Some people want to live in Auburn, Indiana their whole life, which doesn't make them bad people, but I was not that person, right? I wear a shirt. You can see happiness is a choice for this one, but we have a shirt, the staple shirt of Think Different Theory of the playbook is misunderstood, right? Because like, I was heavily, heavily misunderstood, but my identity was in this. So when I started to go make money, I had this true story, Trent. I don't think I've ever told like some of these stories. Like, I had my uncle and aunt and grandfather call me, worried about me, saying that they thought I was going down this path that was wrong because I was posting pictures of like, cars and nice things, whatever, on Instagram, saying that I was becoming too money obsessed. Right.
Interesting.
So like, I was not in this whole supportive environment along what I was doing. Right. And so like, my identity was like, you know what? I don't give a darn. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't care. I'm going to go get rich. I'm going to go make money. And so 18 months ago, when this all comes crashing down, I'm like, my life is wrecked. And not
now
just
who
because,
am I? What I thought I was is gone. So who am I? Yeah.
So like, and here's the thing, a lot of people think that like, they'll say, I love this whole money debate of like, oh, money doesn't buy happiness, but I'd rather cry in a Lamborghini than this, whatever. I'm like, here's the thing. It is, people can say that it's easier to cry in a Lamborghini or like cry when you have some money like to your name or whatever than it is when you're not. And I don't always agree with that. It is totally based upon the circumstance, because at 18 months, I had more money in the bank than I had ever had, but I was more wrecked as a human than like, if that would have happened to me, 18 months prior to that, when I had no money, like it would have wrecked me, but my identity wasn't tied in this thing yet. My identity was still as a broke human being. Now my identity is I'm supposed to be rich right now. And like, all of a sudden I just lost $50,000 a month business and I suck. What the heck is going on? Who am I? All these different things. And it all comes back to this identity.
There's also less outside pressure. When you haven't gone through the success, when you haven't gone through everything else, there's less outside pressure pushing on you. So people can say what they want about it's easier crying a Lamborghini, but you're also dealing with a whole lot less outside pressure when you're not on a platform.
People have no idea how much. People don't understand stress. Like if you've never been in the public spotlight before, like, it's always funny when I'm a huge Logan Paul fan. Like he's just my fanboy. like I geek out over, right?
I know you got your Maverick apparel. I know you love Logan.
I love, and like, he went through some heavy criticism for his stuff. He was being an idiot, and Jake too. But I like look at them and I'm like, y'all have no idea. Like, you have no idea what they're going through right now. You know what I mean? Like,
look, I even know this. I don't have any kind. I mean, I consider my platform very minimal.
Right.
But the bottom line is this: I'm very fortunate in the fact that I just don't stress. I see it, and I see other people who have similar platforms to mine, and there's all kinds of stress. And I always tell people, and my wife knows this, I have a magnet on my fridge. I should get it next time I come on live, and it just says, "It is what it is."
It is what it is, right?
And I'm looking at it, I'm like, if I can't change it, if I can't do anything else, stop thinking about it.
And that's awesome to be able to do. But when you've got 20 million subscribers to your name,
most people can't do that.
Right. You can't handle that. And so for me at this point, I was publicly, remember, this was when I was publicly live streaming every single day that I was going to make $1 million in 1 year. Right. So up until this point, the first video had like 4,000 views on it of people expecting me to go and 4,000 or 5,000 people. You know what I mean? So like, I talk this big game. I have never shied away from talking a big game. I talk myself into situations that I'm like, dang, how did I get here? Right. And it's
not sure
because
I opened my this check.
Big, right. Yeah. It's because I've never regretted those things, but like sometimes you'll get to it. And so like you're under stress, you're under this, your identity changes. So I'm at the bottom, I'm crushed, and I'm like, who am I? And that's when I went on this journey of like, okay, if the gurus say, and like I have mad respect for Russell. Right. Like Russell is one of my favorite people ever to follow and probably forever will.
Likewise.
He's such a good dude. And I remember
he's a genuinely good person, which is one of the reasons I have even more respect, not just his marketing knowledge, but he's a genuinely good dude. Yeah.
He's really awesome. But like he goes and like him and the big wigs mindset. And I'm like, I'm like, dude, I'm 24 years old and I made $250,000 and I didn't have any investors. I had no startup, but my mindset is good, right? I'm sitting here. I'm like, what are you talking about? And at that point, though, when I'm wrapped up there, I'm like, okay, I clearly have no idea what mindset is, right? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what that means. And so that was this journey. And for, thinkdifferenttheory.com/playbook, the Mindset Playbook, like that's the journey. 18 months of figuring that out and studying Joe Dispenza and studying Maxwell Maltz, psycho-cybernetics, power of habit, reading book after book after book, conference after conference. I mean, this is me at high school. I publicly declared I would never read a book again. And now I'm reading book after book after book, watching YouTube videos on this, studying this stuff. And then Sam Ovens was the guy that gave me faith in the internet marketing community again. And it's funny because he hates the internet marketing community, but he gave me the ability to be like, okay, there's a way to market to these people without being the scammy, fake thing that like I can build
doing it without the proverbial shirt pops and
and you can actually have something that's real and legitimate and that would actually hold. Like, I mean, Sam's a smart dude. And so I learned objective thinking more from Sam than anybody else. My first major breakthrough is the question of why. And that's the first chapter of the book. It's why I start there. The question of why is simply, why do you do everything that you do? And for me, my first breakthrough was, holy cow, 90% of everything that we do is on a subconscious level, which means that 90% of our thoughts, beliefs, actions, or whatever are surrounded by our environment or whatever. So I started asking myself the question of why I'm in the internet marketing space. Why do I want success? Why do I want money? Why? Why? And then the second major breakthrough that I had was Sam and Sam's whole concept of objective thinking. And his concept of taking this objective view on the market was huge for me. And I started applying that. I was like, well, if he's taking an objective view on the market to find clarity in what's next, what if I just took an objective view on life? And I realized that that's a lot of what the question of why was. And so, that eventually led me to a point. So there's 5 steps in the playbook. The first one is the question of why. Second one is objective thinking. Third one is, what do you want out of life? And you apply the question of why and objective thinking to that to ensure that it's actually what you want and not based on somebody else's opinion or what someone else is telling you should do. But all of a sudden, then you get to this point where you go, okay, I know what I want out of life. I know how to find on the next steps on how to become that person. And when I realized that like you can change your identity and like you can kill this old person inside of you, and that you actually legitimately have to kill this person inside of you. Like you got to kill it and you have to become the new person. And you do that by changing your identity at a very core level. The way I like to think about it is you don't Okay. So you don't get a choice on how on whether or not your brain is wired, and like whether or not your subconscious is 90% of what you do and think. Like you don't get a choice about those things, right? Like those happen. 90% of yourself is subconscious, whether you like it or not. Your habits are formed, whether you like it or not.
There's only
you're
so
wired
much
the way you are, whether you like it or not.
On a daily basis.
No. What I'm saying is like, you don't get to control whether or not those things happen, but you get to control how they happen. Okay. So like, I like to think of it as that, like, think of it yourself as like on a turntable, right?
Okay.
My identity is pointed right now at 18 months ago. Like, let's say I was pointing in this direction. Okay. My habits, my brain, my thought process was all wired this way, which was an unsuccessful, overworked, person that had negative view of myself, found my identity in money. It was pointed towards identity is pointed towards money. Okay.
Right.
So once again, I have to choose my wiring. I have to choose my habits. Like they're pointed somewhere. So here's where they were pointed based on my actions. But I have a choice. I can unwire those. Now, I can't leave them unwired. They have to be wired to something, but I get to choose where I want to put those wirings, where I want to put those habits, where I want to put that stuff. And so I can pick that up and turn the turntable over here and drop it down and all of a sudden find my identity in myself or find my identity in God. But like, in my teenage years, I found my identity in girls, right? And then, when I was like 19, 20, that shifted to money and success. And then around the age of 22, 23, when this all came, 23, I guess, when this all came crashing down, right? I had to go and I was like, okay, I'm 24 years old, just turned. I have no idea what I want with my life. I'm a mess. Where am I going to put my identity? And so I shifted my identity, which is hard to do, but you can do it. Mindship Playbook tells you how to do it. I shifted my identity from stuck in money and success, because if I would make a lot of money, I'd feel good about myself that day. If I lost a lot of money, I would feel bad about myself that day, right?
Yeah.
And it was all tied to that. So I switched that to go, no, my identity is not tied to that. I am who I am, right? And whether I have $10 million in the bank or I owe someone $10 million, I am who I am, right? That doesn't change me. I might have made some bad decisions or some good decisions, but like, I always struggled in relationships. I was so insecure in relationships my whole life until I met Leah. And the thing about Leah is that like the reason I'm not unsecure is because my identity is not in her. My identity is not in money. And I know that she loves me whether or not I have money or not.
Right.
And I know that I'm okay with myself and who I am, and that God loves me whether or not I have money or not. And you know what? If I were to go bankrupt and lose all my money, all my success, and go into bankruptcy, Leah would be like, all right, I love you. Whatever you got to do next, like, cool, go do your thing. Right. Like, and so like, and I could not accept that from somebody else. And I was not able to accept that from a human until I was able to accept that about myself. And so it's
interesting what you're explaining, because that kind of gives context to, like I told you earlier, like, I've had this, and I know it's not a common thing. I have an innate ability that I just don't stress out. Right. But a lot of what you're explaining is what provides the foundation of understanding why my brain functions like that. Because my wife knows, like my wife could tell you, I have no problem being around people. I'm a very people person, but I also have no problem being by myself. I am who I am. And it's funny to hear you explain this, because I never actually sat and thought about behind the scenes, like what happens behind my brain that gives me the ability to just say, I don't care. If I can't change it, I don't care.
Whatever.
If I can change it, great, I'll do what I can. But if I can't change it, I don't care. It is what it is. And it's cool to hear the process, like you're explaining about how it goes from the why to, and again, I don't have the steps memorized.
Right.
All the way through to where you get to your identity shift, which when you're comfortable with your identity, like you're saying, it allows you to say, no matter what goes on around me, I'm secure. I'm comfortable.
I am who I am. Right. Like, it's cool. Right. Like and for me, it was always this thing of self-love. I didn't believe anybody would love me unless I was rich. I really didn't believe that.
Interesting.
And because like, I love my parents to death, and I would never, ever talk bad about them. But for context, right. Like for a while before my parents got help in their marriage, like there was problems, not that they were ever going to get divorced, but there was stress all the time. And the stress always came from lack of money. Like I didn't grow up in money at all. And now my parents have an amazing relationship now, and I love my parents to death. They're like so important to me. But like growing up, money was the issue. Money was the stress point. Right. And so I'm like, well, if dad just made more money, then he could be home more. And then he could like be around us more. And then he could fix the problems with mom. You know what I mean? Like all these different things. And so in my mind, I was like, if I can't provide, right? So what am I going to do? I'm going to go get rich. And so I put my identity in that. Right. And I used the verse in the Bible, you know, you're a Christian. First go plant your fields, then build your house. Right. So I justified it with the Bible. I was like, this is God's will. God wants me to be rich, right? God wants me to build a business first. And, you know, going through that whole process of everything was just a very interesting journey in my life, a very interesting journey of like what's going on. But the thing about identity is that like, you have to remember your identity lives in your subconscious. And like, I know we're kind of going over here on time. And so I want to wrap it up here. I have another interview. That's what I'm saying. But your identity lives in your subconscious. So your subconscious, 90%, you don't realize what's going on, right? Like you're just chilling. So your identity, where's that form? Lives in the subconscious. Your subconscious, which technically there's two parts of it, but for the sake of this conversation, your subconscious has a perfect memory from the day that you were born. Okay. So you don't remember this, but your subconscious does. So from the day you're born, every thought, experience, action, environment, thing, or whatever, like it has a perfect memory. And it not only remembers visually what's happened, it also remembers perfectly how you felt, emotions, everything like that. So your identity is what? Your identity is your belief about yourself. Okay. Your belief about yourself. So I'm like, all right, well, if my identity is belief about myself, what makes up a belief? A belief, and this is so important, this is mind blowing to me. A belief is a circumstance or a situation plus an emotion. Okay. So I want you to think about something. If you've never, ever experienced money before, Trent, like ever, never in your whole life, right? I know it's not possible, but like third world country, never done it before. Okay. The very first time you ever heard about money was that money had given someone this amazing life, had saved someone from cancer and sickness, had given everything back, and that everybody that had money was this happy thing or whatever, right?
Right.
That's a circumstance plus an emotion. Positive emotion, circumstance. Your view of money is positive, right? Because that's the only thing that you've had. But remember, your subconscious remembers every experience plus every emotion about that experience. So your whole entire environment growing up, if it's negative about money or if it's been about one way or success or whatever, your belief, your identity, remember belief about yourself, your identity about money is negative because that's where you grew up. That's what you believe about it based upon that. So how do you change that, right? And so I'm like, well, how do I go? I can't go back 20 years of my life and go reprogram all those things, right? Like, so how do I overcome that? Well, the beautiful thing about identity and the beautiful thing about like belief is that like when you see something consistently over and over and over and over and over and over again, you start to believe it. And it doesn't take big changes, little changes all add up. So it's like you can have one big block of cheese or you can have 100 small blocks of cheese, the same amount of cheese, right? And so to change your identity, you must change your habits. And this is part 5 of the playbook, because what a habit is when a habit, and I don't have time to go into it, but like when habits are formed, they don't require memory. They don't require anything. You can lose your entire memory and still have your habits. And this is proved in like the habit thing. Like they have scientific tests where they remember nothing, but every single time at the exact same time, the guy will stand up out of his chair, go for a round or walk around the block and come back. But if you stop him at any point around that route, he won't know where he is, who you are, where the house is, like nothing. But if you just let him back go and just subconsciously or in his memory just goes. I mean, not in his memory, his habit will just go. So like
it's a muscle memory.
It is. And so when you change your habits every single day, if I learned how to change my habits and I did one thing per day that gave me a positive view about money, one thing. Okay. Yeah. Doesn't have to be huge. My whole life, I could have a negative view of money.
You will slowly begin changing your beliefs.
From now until July 2nd to July 2nd of 2020, if I did one thing per day that gave me a positive view of money, that is 365 positive views of money. Guess what's going to change? My belief about money.
All the negative views and negative experiences you had previously by reforming and retraining your brain to relate this experience and this emotion to money.
And I'm making it stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And the belief gets stronger, which changes my identity. So what did I have to do? I had to reprogram my belief about money and get my identity away from money. I had to take habits to go and taking time off of social media, blocking people that were, bringing me negative, going out and going for walks and getting out in the environment, going back to church, like so many things, because I had to get away from it. I had to go and be like, I am literally removing myself from that situation so that I can guarantee that I was like, okay, I want my identity to be in God, right? Like I knew that, or at least I knew that I wanted to do that. And so I'm at this point in my life where I'm like, all this sucks, right? Like I have no idea what I'm going on with my life. So I might as well try to reprogram it to the ideal circumstance. So what do? Listen, I hate the church. I've hated the church growing up, right? Like I didn't mind the people in there, but it all seems so fake to me, right? Like you had to wear dresses and skirts in order to serve God. You couldn't listen to contemporary Christian music because there was too much drum. Like, I mean, this is like the type of stuff that I grew up doing and like learning. And like, you know what I mean? Like tattoos were bad. I have tattoos, like tattoos were bad.
And we know this for clarification, there's a difference between church and a relationship. But we'll just leave it at that.
But like second part of that, I hated the church growing up. Yeah. And so, but I was like, I know God is in the church. So what did I do? I was like, you know what? I hated church growing up. I thought it was super fake. I thought it was super religious-y. But what did I do? I went back to church and I was like, I'm going to take this from a completely new perspective to try to get away from it. And while I do think there's a lot of things wrong with, some churches, the church is not a building, right? The church is a people, right? Exactly. Right. And so I get back into this and I start having this whole new perspective. And like, yeah, some religion sucks, but having a relationship with God doesn't. And, like a lot of churches do a lot of things good. And so it took me a while to like reshape this whole identity. But like, I hated the church for a while, but now I'm like, oh my gosh, like my church family, like the actual people that I've connected with on a real level, like I wouldn't trade that for anything, And it's because my identity shifted from having to be all about money to being like, okay, God, I'm putting my identity in you. And if you wish me to have money, I'm going to pursue that. I'm going to have a successful business. I believe that, all good things come from you, but my identity
either way though, my identity doesn't change.
It is not in. Awesome. Yeah. It's not in.
We'll get you out of here, man. Cause I know you get your interview. So real fast, first things first, where do they find you on social media?
Instagram at Josh Forti, JOSHFORTI. That's on social. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. And then where do they go to download the Mindset Playbook?
ThinkDifferent.com/playbook. ThinkDifferent.com/playbook. It will get you the free copy of the Mindshift Playbook. Awesome. This week
I'll be putting a link in the feed here as well, guys.
This week only, $3,000 giveaway, cash, iPad, AirPods, Apple Watch, books, more if you download the playbook. And then the podcast is just ThinkDifferentTheory.com. Think Different Theory on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, all places where podcasts are found.
Awesome, brother. It's been good, man. I appreciate you taking the time out. I'll let you get rolling. I know you got other obligations as well.
I got Akbar coming up, man.
Akbar.
Akbar and his group. He's going to grill me, bro.
Hey, Akbar was actually my first guest on this show.
Oh, really? All right. Well, I'll have to tell him that. All
right, brother.
All right.
All right, guys. Been another episode of Trent Talks. I appreciate it. As always, love you guys. Thank you. I really hope you enjoyed and got a lot of value in this video. If you did, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment below. I'm going to be answering all the comments myself. And also, come find me on your favorite social media platform and tell me what else I can help you with.